In this lesson, we're going to look at evaluating integers in longer numerical expressions and at evaluating algebraic expressions with variables. Let's say we're looking at this expression, 12 minus negative 5 minus 8. You'll notice we have a bunch of subtraction in this numerical expression. So what we want to do first is we want to make sure we go through the entire problem and change all of our subtractions to addition and take the opposite of the number we're subtracting by. So the 12 will not change because it's the first number in the problem. The minus becomes a plus, and negative 5 will become positive 5. And then we have minus 8, so this minus will also become a plus, and that 8 will become negative 8. So what we're left with here is 12 plus 5 plus negative 8. Just like we did in the lesson for adding integers, we know that at this point, it's best to go through and add the like signs first and be left with the opposite signs at the end. So if I have 12 plus 5 plus negative 8, I'm going to add the 12 plus 5 first, which is 17, plus negative 8. And now I have the different signs. So when the signs are different, I subtract, and we give the sign of the bigger absolute value, or do I have more positives or negatives? And in this one, I have more positives, so my answer is positive 9. Now, in this example, it was all subtraction, so you had to change each term to addition and take the opposite. It's not always going to be like that. Sometimes the problem is going to be a mixture of addition and subtraction. So let's look at this example. Negative 10 plus 4 minus 6 minus negative 12 plus negative 1. If you look at this problem, you notice that not everything is subtraction. This is a subtraction, this is a subtraction, but everything else is either addition or showing a negative number. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they start to change addition problems to subtraction and take the opposite, or even just take the opposite after an addition problem, when you're only supposed to do it in subtraction. So let's rewrite this problem all together. Negative 10 stays the same. Plus 4 stays plus 4. Again, what a lot of people end up doing is writing that as a negative 4. You don't change the sign after an addition problem. Minus 6 does become plus. 6 will become negative 6. Minus negative 12, now that's a minus, so it becomes a plus. And negative 12 becomes positive 12. And then plus here is already plus. And people are so tempted to make that negative 1 a positive 1, but we don't do it. It stays a negative 1 because it already was plus. So now we're looking at negative 10 plus 4 plus negative 6 plus 12. I notice that there's only two positive numbers, so I'm going to add those two positive numbers first. 4 plus 12 is 16. And then I have plus negative 10 plus negative 6 plus negative 1 left over. Because all I've done so far is take out the 4 and the 12 to make it 16. So now I have three negative numbers that I need to add together. When they're all negatives, you know you're going to just add them all together and make one number, but I'm still going to write this as a step-to-step process. So I'll start by adding the negative 10 and the negative 6. I have 16 plus negative 16 plus negative 1. Now look what happened here. In previous lessons, we would have automatically added the negative 16 and the negative 1 because those are both your negatives. But what you should notice in this problem is that you have a positive 16 and a negative 16. And we have to remember that when you add a number and its opposite, it equals 0. So what we can actually just do is cross out those two -16s, and then we are left with -1 as our answer. Okay, I'd like you to try one of these on your own. 14 minus 20 plus -5 minus -11 plus 9 minus 3. Pause the video and try it out and come back and see how you did. Okay, welcome back. We are going to change first all of our subtractions to additions. 14 is going to stay 14. Minus 20 should have become plus -20. Plus -5 stays plus -5. Minus -11 should become plus +11. Plus 9 stays plus 9. And then minus 3 should become plus -3. So when I'm looking at what I have, nothing really stands out as far as adding things together. So I'm going to go through and start with all of my positives, end up with all of my positives together, and then deal with my negatives. I noticed that 11 and 9 make 20. So I'm going to start by writing 14 plus the 20 that I got from the 11 plus 9. So these two are added together. And then I'm going to write the rest of the problem. So 14 plus the 20 that I got, and then I wrote the rest of my negatives that I had just along the line. Now the same thing happened in this problem that happened in the last problem. I have a positive 20 and a negative 20. So I see that those two cancel out. So I'm really left with 14 plus -5 plus -3. Still sticking with combining the things that have the same sign. So -5 and -3, I know are -8. So I have 14 plus -8. And now I finally have numbers with different signs. When the signs are different, we subtract. 14 minus 8 is 6. And I know that 14 is positive and 8 is negative. So I have more positives than negatives. So the answer should be positive 6. Just like our order of operations problems, these are becoming V-shaped. You need to make sure you're showing your work when you're solving these problems. The last type of problem I want to go through is when you are evaluating algebraic expressions. Now, algebraic means it has a variable in it. So if you look at what I have here, it tells you that k equals -3, m equals -6, and n equals 9. You're going to get problems like 4 minus n, and you're going to be expected to plug in the value of n for the variable and then solve the expression. So when I look at this problem, 4 minus n, it shows me on the top that n equals 9. So you rewrite the problem, 4 minus, and instead of n, you write 9, and then follow the rules that we've learned for solving all of these problems. Since it is smaller minus bigger, you have to keep the 4 a 4, change the minus to a plus, and the 9 becomes -9. You notice that the signs are different, so you subtract, and then you say, do I have more positives or negatives? And in this case, you have more negatives. So 4 minus n equals -5. Okay, take a minute to solve the other 3 examples here, and then come back to the video to see how you did. All right, welcome back. Let's look at the top right. If it says m minus -8, we know that m equals -6, so you plug that in for your m, and then you rewrite the rest of the problem as is. So we have negative 6 minus negative 8. It is a subtraction with integers problem, so the first number stays the same. Subtraction becomes addition, and negative 8 becomes positive 8. We're adding numbers with different signs now, so we're going to subtract those two numbers and get 2. And then notice that we have more positives than negatives, so our answer will be positive 2. Looking over at the bottom left, if I evaluate by plugging into these variables, negative 5 was negative 5, so it stays that way. I'm going to write that plus because it doesn't matter what the next number is. The plus will stay a plus. K is negative 3, so I'm going to write that in parentheses to show the difference between the plus and the minus. And then minus, and n is 9. Because this has multiple steps, I'm going to rewrite the problem again, changing just my subtraction. Negative 5 plus negative 3. That doesn't change because it was addition. And minus 9 becomes plus negative 9. They are all negative numbers. Because of that, I can add them in any order. I'm going to start with negative 5 and negative 3. Signs the same, so we add and keep the same sign. That's negative 8 plus negative 9, just rewriting the problem. Still ending numbers with the same sign, negative 8 and negative 9. Add and keep the same sign. All right, last example, bottom left. Remembering that these two long lines outside of a problem are absolute value symbols. You don't take the absolute value until you've solved everything inside the problem. So m is negative 6 minus k is negative 3. And these absolute value symbols stay outside of the problem because I solve the inside first. Negative 6 minus negative 3 is negative 6 plus positive 3. And again, these are still outside the problem. I'm adding numbers with different signs, so I subtract, and I give the sign that I have more of. I have more negatives. It is still absolute value. And then I take the absolute value of negative 3, which is positive 3. All right, so there's a couple things you need to try from this video. Good luck, and make sure to ask questions if you have them.